So today I'm really excited to bring on a dear soul sister of mine and someone I just really admire and enjoy every second I get to be around her and talk to her, even though she lives on, well, kind of the other side of the world from where I am. This is Edel Swords. Hi, Edel.
Hi, Melanie. Hi, everyone.
So good to have you on. The facilitator of transformation is with us today, and Edel and I were talking about this before we hopped on, what it is that she does in the world and what magic she really brings. And it's one of those things where labels almost don't seem like enough because you have so much magic in you. But the best we can do, using whatever words we have, tell us what it means to be, in your understanding, a facilitator of transformation and the work you do with people.
Okay, so a really difficult question just to start me off nice and smoothly. Okay, so I have been working for years with different modalities. I work with my hands massage, I work with reflexology, acupuncture, counseling, and I also do yoga classes, meditation. I take women in groups, men in separate groups. I do a lot of different types of work, but I don't like being pigeonholed underneath any categories. So I like to call myself a facilitator of transformation. And in saying that, I really find that when I'm with a group of people, when I'm with an individual, I listen and I feel what's happening with them in the moment. So a huge part of my work is comes from my intuition of really being present with the person, with their energy, and knowing, navigating exactly what's needed by them because I'm holding a space for nobody else, only them, or in a group situation, holding a space for the group. So, is that answering the question?
Yeah, I love that. I think that is a really good gateway for us to go down because what actually stands out is intuition. And as this is a show for women, and obviously intuition is such a big part of our journey, not only of being alive, but of a woman's journey in particular. I imagine there could be some people out there going, okay, intuition, like, how do you know what that is? What is that? How would you kind of describe, like, what do you mean when you say intuition, Edel?
Okay. Well, your gut feeling, to me, I'll start there. So what is your gut feeling? We all have a gut feeling, but a lot of the time, especially when I talk to women, I find one of the greatest sadnesses I find is that they've lost their gut feeling, or it has been diminished, squashed, or suppressed because of different relationships or because of their own programming or conditioning within their families. So our intuition is when we have a good feeling, a tingling in our tummy, an uncomfortable feeling in our tummy, whatever you want to call it, even a tightness in your chest, it first and foremost is definitely felt physically. And that's how I would introduce it to people. If they were saying, how can I increase, how can I expand my intuition? I would say you start at the base. The base is your physical body. You start by feeling how you feel and understanding how you feel. And from there, we can move into the lighter, more subtle energies where the intuition becomes sharper and sharper as you practice.
Oh, good feeling. I felt better just hearing those words. So it reminds me of how important this is to be connected to this place within us, because it really is the center of our lives and of where we go, right? Moment to moment. It's like, what do we do? What feels right? That deep internal trust. And yet I imagine a lot of people that you see have either lost connection to this place or don't even know that this exists in them. Tell us a little bit about that.
You know, what's coming up for me right now is something that happened quite recently with me, and it is where I realized how I lost my intuitiveness. When I was about 5, I was really intuitive. I felt, and not only felt, but I knew what everybody was feeling and thinking in a room. And that was soon knocked out of me because it wasn't safe, and I was saying too much. I was very young, very innocent. I wasn't cognitively developed at that stage, so I didn't know the right and wrong thing to say. So it was squashed. My intuition was squashed. I was told that what I was feeling was wrong. So the people that told me what I was feeling was wrong were the people I loved. So they taught me to cover up. So I learned how to cover up very well. So this is what I find with my clients. We are covering up, but we don't know we're covering up. Because what happens when we're hurt in a relationship and we hold that hurt for a few days, because we're feeling this hurt. Somebody says something to us and we're hurt. So we hold it for a few days because we don't know how to speak about it. So in the few days then, our partner, friend says, what's going on with you? And you say, listen, you really hurt. What you said really hurt me. And they say, oh my God, you're so silly. You're so sensitive. This is ridiculous. I didn't mean that. I've forgotten all about that. So in that moment, we feel foolish. Our intuition gets squashed. Our feelings get squashed. And what we do in that moment is we turn to the people, the person who tells us we're foolish. We turn back into the person that is claiming that they love us, because that's what we're used to doing. And we cover up and cover up again and again. And this is happening once this is revealed, the feelings, the intuition really starts to grow from the place of that heaviness down in the very base of your body, the place that's been hidden. So that, I would say, is what happens. A lot of people, and it's a good place to catch it, is when you say to them, have you ever been told you're too sensitive by somebody? Have you ever been told that? No, I never said that. Or another really, really a damaging sentence is when they say to you, I wasn't in my right mind when I said that. I can't believe I said that. All of these sentences are ways of pushing us down further, and of ways of the person who hurt us absolutely getting away with it and us covering it up. So we're covering it up. So our intuition then gets dulled more and more and more. To me, it's a really lovely place to start. It's the place of checking out what's happening around you all the time with your family, with your friends, and just see how quickly you cover up for somebody else, because you don't want to embarrass them, or you don't want them to feel bad for what they said to you.
Wow, I feel really touched by that. It feels like deeply true that most of us are walking around with all these layers of these places in us that we've covered up, these wounds, these places where we were hurt, these soft spots, these sensitivities, and we're forming beliefs around them. And our body is taking some kind of like blueprint or has like a memory of these times, because they're all squashed down inside of us layer upon layer. And what I'm really hearing is that the work that you do is like a freeing up, like there's a freedom that's really coming in on the other side of putting light to these places and opening them up again, so we can really be who we are and not carry all this baggage around.
Yeah, it is, and it's very sensitive. It's really, really sensitive. For a beginning, or for a start, if we're hiding and covering up for somebody that's hurting us, and there's a lack of self-worth, and there's a lack of self-love. And if there's a lack of self-worth and self-love, and we don't even realize it, it's very hard. If I'm looking at somebody, I realize it, but I definitely don't want to tell somebody that immediately. I don't want to shame them into feeling that they are worthless, or they're feeling worthless, because I don't think they are. But it's a really delicate navigation, and in it, the important thing I feel with women, with all of us, is that we have to feel very safe in the environment where we do this work, and that we also we cannot cover up. we must begin by being honest with ourselves, and then being honest with the one-to-ones or in the group situations. And that to me is a little stepping stone in itself, that it can take some time before you're ready to reveal that. And it's that is okay as well, that it takes that little bit of time, but definitely to know if there's deep hurt, that there's lots and lots and lots of layers before you get to that deep hurt.
It's a journey, the stepping stones.
Yeah.
And how often do you encounter this type of thing with your clients when they're coming in the door? I mean, are we all carrying these wounds around lack of self-love or unworthiness, or does it vary from person to person? What do you find?
Honestly, the women that I work with, the pinnacle is self-love. If they're, it comes again and again and again, no matter what work I do with them, the underlining is they go away and they come back to me, and it's still the self-love. They don't love themselves enough to take on the work. Sometimes they don't feel they're worthy of taking on this work. There's a saying, and you know, I'm from the other side of the world, from Ireland, but I don't know if you have that same saying over there, but self-love, turn it around, and it is loving themselves, loving ourselves. When I grew up, if we heard somebody was loving themselves, that was an awful thing to say about somebody, because they were cocky, they were over ambitious, and all of that was wrong. None of that was the way you were supposed to behave. And so self-love is one of, to me, is the most important aspect looking at anybody. And I would ask anybody that works with me, are they prepared to go on a journey of self-love? And if they're not, in my heart, I don't want to waste their time, because that's the journey I'm on with them. I'm on a journey to open a space for them, to hold a space for them, so that they can be empowered to find self-love and to stand in self-love and self-worth. Otherwise, our journey is quite empty. There isn't enough juice, or there's not enough grit in it for me to work with somebody.
Yes. Self-love is that foundation for this work, is what I'm really hearing. And yeah, here in America, it feels, at least from my understanding, that kind of has this cheesy connotation and a lot of sort of more mainstream use. It's like self-love, like it feels a little, it feels like a little, like cheesy, and just kind of has like this feeling to it. But at its deep core, it really is the root of this. Like, how do you take someone who's just at the very beginning of this path and is like, wait, self-love? Like, and how do you bridge the gap between, you know, meeting them where they are and where they need to go, and they really haven't done much work on themselves around this?
Yeah, well, for what I always do ask somebody is, what are you here for? What do you want out of this? What do you want out of the work? What do you want for your life, for yourself? So a lot of times they would come in and they would have something. It could be a physical pain to start with. It could be that they're in a relationship and it's not going anywhere, or they've been in 10 relationships, they've all ended, and they haven't seen the pattern yet of why they've all ended. And they say, why can I not find the right bloke, or why can I not find whatever they're, whoever they're interested in, why can I not find the right partner? But we will start scraping back the layers. And yes, I will start with the hurt. I will always start with where it began. We'll go back to the inner child, what their homes were like, how much love there was, how much berating, abusing, disrespecting, treating them like a doormat. All of this, I will find out where it started and how then they took on the role of their parents when they became teenagers, or when they left home. Then the inner voice, the inner critic, the inner saboteur took on the voice of the parent or the teacher or whatever, whoever berated them. So we'll start to scrape back, but very, very gently. I know I sound nearly that I'm diving in this very, very deeply and very quickly, but it's so gentle and so pure and so safe when we do this work. And it's like a flower opening. And I always say to the women, remember you're a little bud, and if you're going to open, I want you to open because you want to open, you're free to open, and you have a desire to open, not because you think you have to open. So it's the feeling of opening. So I don't open it for them, they open it for themselves. So that makes everything much, much safer. And yeah, that's where I go. It's very, very gentle. I'm not sure if I've answered that question for you now in saying that, but let's have a look.
I love that, because that gentle openness really is the flavor of what you do. I've experienced it in my own way, and I would say that that feels really true. And that scraping back of the layers, absolutely. I feel like the word open feels really a really beautiful way to capture that, is that gentle opening, sort of one piece at a time, obviously in the readiness of the moment, right? So there's no forcing, there's no prodding. It's more of an inquiry and an invitation is what I hear, and that feels true of what I know of you. And I'm curious how your own personal journey really, and your own challenges that you overcame, in your past, influence what you do today. And obviously you've lived this. You haven't just mentally studied this. So much of you is body and intuitive and knowing, and your own experience. Just what you'd want to share about that.
Well, how long have you got? I could be here for some time. I actually would say that in all the learning I have, most of my learning came from my own self-experience, and of finding the girl who was a doormat, who didn't know she was a doormat, who was codependent, who, I was all of the labels that stood for somebody that had no self-confidence in their ability to either speak or perform with a group, or to even self-confidence in my body. I'm painting a very bleak picture of myself, but this is the truth if you want to know about where I've come from. I came from a family that were staunch Catholics, and the Catholicism in my life ruled my life. And if anything to do with the body was shameful, anything, at the age of 10, when I started to find myself turning into a woman, I was ashamed beyond words. I was so ashamed of what was happening to my body. I was so ashamed of what I looked like, what I felt like, and I couldn't speak about it because it was something you didn't speak about. So I went on through that. Way back, I'll just reverse back to being about 4. I was raised with 5 boys, 5 brothers, and when I went to school at 4, my eldest brother brought me to school to realize I was going into a all-girls school. I didn't know what I was going into. I didn't know that I was a girl. This might sound off the charts. I didn't know that there was a difference in sexes at that. Not really, even though my mom and my dad were different. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I did not know what it was like. I thought I was a boy. And for all of my life, I was treated in a very male environment, and my femininity was squashed right down to the very base. And at that base, it was squashed further. So when I started to behave in a girly fashion, that was well knocked out of me. And I don't mean physically. There was no slapping. My parents were they didn't slap me or anything like that, but it was stopped immediately. I was told it was, through voice, I was told, not to behave in that ridiculous manner and whatever. So as I grew older, then I was trying to find my femininity, and I was always ashamed of it. because I guess that's what I was taught as a child. And that went on and went on through all of my relationships. They were a disaster after disaster. And eventually I had enough. I just said, I have enough of this. I want to live the best version of my life I can live. And in the best version of my life, I want to bring me to the surface, because I knew I was buried. I knew I was just a shell of a person going around the place. And I wanted to find out who the real me was. There was some calling that was deeper than I can really describe to you here, but it was a calling. It was that gut feeling became stronger than me. And I started to feel into that gut feeling a little bit more. And I knew that there was a girl that was really lodged deep inside me that needed to come to the fore, and she needed to be born. So I did this work. I started to work deeper on myself, getting healing, physical healing on aches and pains. A lot of energy work. I got a lot of energy work done, but I always felt misunderstood, always, until I found the one person, and that was Robert Masters. And when I found Robert Masters, Melanie knows him as well, and he now is my mentor. He, I will safely say, was the first person who actually saw me. When he looked at me, I felt this man sees me at 4 years of age and every single age since then. And he is looking at me and actually loving me. And that was the turning point in my life.
Would you say that that's when you were able to love yourself really, even on a deeper level, when you saw someone else loving you? Is there a correlation there?
Yes, a little. When I saw him loving me, what I will say that did was it allowed me then to love me. Not so much. It's very strange, because he did love me, but not in a way that I was going to be able to find my love back through him, like I was looking for in all my other relationships. All of my other relationships, even my mother and my father, I looked to be loved. I looked for my own self-love through them. In all of my relationships, I looked for me to love me through their eyes. When he looked at me, he loved me. I could see that he loved me in this pure, very spiritual way, but I didn't feel I could have a relationship with him where I could love myself through him, because he wasn't going to allow that. So for me to love myself, I had to actually do it for myself.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah, Robert's an incredible man. I'm hoping he'll come on an episode in the future. So I'm glad you kind of like planted the seed there, because it's been in the back of my mind as he's an incredible transformational teacher and shadow expert. And that's how I met you. So I would wholeheartedly echo that about him, sort of seeing you through the eyes of love, and that being a shift for you around the dynamic within yourself and your own love. And I'm also just curious, because I've heard you say relationship several times now. So it sounds like relationship and past relationships and the clients you've worked with and their experiences around relationship have really been a big sort of factor, and just have contributed to people's wounding and challenge. And I mean, it seems like as women, this is something we really value. So like, how I also want to ask you, like, how do we get to the other side where relationship can be this thing that boosts us up, and that we can really use it to have even a stronger relationship with ourselves and our self-love, and not be the source of all this pain and all these wounds that I feel like so many women are carrying around, past hurt and resentment and all of that. Just a small question for you, Edel.
Oh my goodness. You know, I have looked for a relationship. It's in my life, I've been through several of them, and all of the time I would say I love easily. I give very easily of myself. My receiving capacity is not so easy. my receiving, I'm not so quick to be able to receive because I don't feel worthy of receiving. That's one of the big ones. And I don't have enough self-love to warrant or to believe that I would be able to have love coming back at me. So it's a very dodgy situation to get into a relationship if you do not have self-worth and if you do not have self-love. And with all of my girls, even with the women that are in relationships for years, they're married for years, some of them have partners for a very long time, they're taking a whole new look at their relationships. And some of them realize that they don't actually love their partner, or that they realize that they will maybe love their partner in time, but they know that they don't love themselves, and that it's not fair that the relationship couldn't possibly be true of the loving each other. So yes, I could not enter into a relationship, and where I am right now, I think it's so disruptive. Excuse me, disruptive is the word I'm trying to spit out of my mouth. And we're destroying each other unless we can find within ourselves a love. And that's where the flower opens. But the flower has a stem and the flower has roots. So we must get to know our roots, our stem, and the little bud and the flower to allow it to open. You cannot open that flower, that bud, into a beautiful blossom if you do not realize you're attached to maybe a thorny stem, and you're attached right down into the roots of your life, where you've come from. So people want to get into relationships and they're putting on a show about this is who I am, this is the new me, and you cannot enter a relationship unless all of you enters the relationship. And if all of you doesn't enter the relationship, it won't work because eventually the partner will find out about you, parts of you that you're trying to hide. And if you're trying to hide something, then you need to work on what you're trying to hide, because you're not fully in love with yourself. Self-love is not there, and self-worth is not there.
Yes. Oh goodness. I have to say, I personally know about this from my past. Yeah, it doesn't work. And yet, there's a famous Chris Rock skit. Do you know who Chris Rock is? Like a comedian. I haven't seen anything of his in years, but he's popular here in the States. And he has this famous thing where he talks about people going on dates and they send in their representative. And it's like, and so it's one representative of one person going on a date with the representative of another person, and we're trying to relate at that level. And it's hysterical how he does it, but the deeper message there, it's like, whoa, that really is true. There's some part of us that I kind of picture as like keeping it in the shadows or keeping it in the back. It's like, oh, well, I don't want them to know about that. Or I'm kind of putting on a face because, that part of me is kind of ugly or unruly or untamed, or the needy parts of me, or the parts of me, that are the grabby parts. It's like there's so much of us going on at any one time, and yet I feel like there's really an invitation for us to go, screw it, I'm gonna bring all of me. But that does take that deep foundation that I'm hearing you talk about, of self-love and knowing who we are. And yet I'm also curious, okay, so let's say that there's women listening to this that do want to be in a relationship, but they also go, I don't know if my roots are, where they need to be. I don't know if my stem is firmly planted in the ground. What would you say to those women?
For a start, going out and trying to meet somebody new, yes, keep doing it. Even if you're not, if you think you're slightly broken, or we're not fully fixed, or you don't fully love yourself, yes, keep going. But at least keep going with that knowledge. If you're going out with the knowledge that, yes, you're brand spanking new, and that your past is your past and it's buried and forget about it, I would just say, be yourself. It doesn't mean that you go out in your sweats and you don't do yourself up. Of course, you put on your best physical appearance, because that's self-care, and self-care and self-love are partners. But also, one of the important things I always tell the girls is, you ask yourself, do you like him or her? When you're on the date, do you like them? Are they impressing you? Not the other way around. Oftentimes we go out with this, do I look okay? Do they think I look okay? Oh, I hope he likes me. I wonder, do they like what I'm wearing? Oh, I wonder, am I talking too much? You're really turning the whole scale of things around, and it's not, you're not showing your true self at all. So sit back, relax, and ask yourself, do you like what you're seeing? And are you happy in their company? And do you like what they're telling you? And sit back and enjoy it for that, rather than you feeling like you're at an interview or that you're on show, and that it all depends on whether they like you or not for this to continue. Take a different seat. Take the seat of the person that's going out to see, do you like them?
Goodness, I'm so happy you just said that. I'm like, yes, she said it. Someone needed to say it. It's so important. Yes, women do this. This is such a perpetual habit, right? Of just that, oh, I hope he likes me. It's like, we want this approval. We want to be liked. We want to kind of pass that test. And yet, yeah, it's like flipping the script or flipping the view. That's so critical. It's so important. That really is that self-love, right? I know I tell the clients I work with when they're on a date specifically and they're at the table, I tell them, place your hands on your thighs. Like, keep your hands there. Keep a relationship going with your body. And I tell them that's a good place, because, you know, it'd be kind of weird if you were like on a date and had your hands on your heart or your shoulders or your head, but it's like a natural resting position. But it's like, feel your thighs, like press into them a little bit, like kind of knead your fingers into them, like just kind of keep that relationship with your body. Like, how is your body feeling? What are you noticing? Because we can get so in our heads and so kind of wrapped up in the moment, which I feel like is what happens with love, right? There's almost like a swoosh of energy that comes in if we think that someone might want us, or think that someone is going to be a yes for wanting to pursue us, especially as women. And that can just sweep us off our feet. And I'm curious, with the work that you do, like, how do you keep your clients grounded and rooted when like that swoosh comes in, or when something else in their life kind of floods in, an issue or a crisis or a worry, or even like right now the coronavirus is happening as we record this. Like, how do you mentor your clients to stay rooted and grounded to themselves and the earth when so much chaos can happen around us?
Well, that's one of the main courses I teach ongoing. My classes on a weekly basis are. I was talking to you earlier. I was saying that I teach yoga, but I now teach a class that is a mixture of earth, air, fire, wind, or earth, air, fire, and space. But it's I'm constantly teaching grounding methods. And I also, this is funny, do you know what I also do? I get them all to look up their chart, their natal chart, and to see how much fire, how much earth, how much air, and how much water they have in their chart. Now, this is very loose. I'm not an astrologer, but it's very loose. But I have found so much information about my clients through this method. And if you don't have much earth in your chart, you need to really ground yourself, because you can be quite flighty and it's hard to pull you back down. And the same, if you have a lot of fire, you could just, you can be a bit explosive, and you can be maybe overly passionate on the first date, maybe overly fiery. And you're wondering why the guy, has left halfway through the meal, because it's not that he doesn't like you, it's that he's terrified. It's way.
I have no idea what you're talking about, by the way. Not a clue. I'm all fire. It's like,
yeah. So it's about, if you're all fire, it's about cooling the fire a little bit. If you're all earth, well, you want to come out of there a little bit. You want to come on a little bit of fire to the earth. And to get to know your body, and these are the classes I teach every week, they're sensual, even though I have some men in the classes as well. It's about the rising, the awakening of the feminine. And that is all in movement. So in that movement, it's not just, we don't just talk, we're moving, we're breathing, we're moving the body, moving the hips, and doing some chanting and doing some shaking. So it's really engaging in your body. Now, I know if you're going to go out on a date, you don't want to maybe do all of that and look all disheveled as you go out, but it's the more you do that, the more, no matter where you're going, no matter what you're doing, you're actually feeling in your body. And as you say, put your hand on your leg. And if I was when I'm going out as well, I also find it's a lovely tip to look in the mirror before you go out. See yourself going out. Make sure you're really, really comfortable, and tell yourself you're really looking forward going home with you. I'm really looking forward to going home with you. You are who I want to be with, first and foremost. And if somebody else comes along, well, they better be better than this.
Yes.
And that's what I just say in the mirror. It gives, because it's then you're very grounded and you're very solid in yourself, and you're also, your heart is open. You're allowing a flow, you're allowing the fire, you're allowing the air and the water, and you're allowing the earth to all mix in this beautiful state. And of course we put on a little bit of a persona, but you're still at the root of it yourself. So you still are grounded. And if you're not grounded, you know you're not grounded. You know you've flipped, because you're used to being grounded. And it's a practice. So it's about getting up, doing a practice daily or weekly or whatever, twice weekly, whatever suits you, to really know your different states.
Yes, I love this. I think the astrology is really important, and even if people aren't really into it, those who are listening, it's a piece of information that if you have it, you just have a little more intelligence about how to work with your body and your own energetic system. So that doesn't mean you have to get into all the nits and, your moon and your this and the transits and all that. Like, that's an invitation. But what really I hear you talking about is just know the basics of your chart, your astrological chart, know where the elements are, and then you have a bit more insight into how to work with your own systems and what you need to enhance a bit more and what needs a little more love. And then you can be better attuned to your experience and to your body and to what you need. And I mean, I know I have very little earth in my chart, so I have to go lay on the earth pretty often just to feel that grounded feeling. And I have to get in water a lot because I don't have a lot of water in my chart either. It's like, okay, there's just ways that we can really nurture our garden or our inner landscape more and more. And I feel like men want to actually help us do this. And I know I heard you say something around men in your classes, and you also the divine feminine. And I'm just curious, how, what's the invitation for men right now? Even though I know this is a women's podcast, I think it's important that we understand, what's the dynamic right now that's shifting the paradigm, and what's the invitation for men to kind of to help us rise as women?
I'm really glad you asked me that, because in fact, I have shifted my invitations to inviting men into some of the groups that were women only. And in doing so, especially this year, I do little rituals around the spring equinox, the summer solstice, and etc. So when I do those rituals, it's often a time where women gather and we, do different sort of a ceremonial drumming or whatever to call on the feminine energy. But I find that this year, even more than last year, I'm feeling it much, much stronger, that feminine energy coming to a life within us. But I really feel that to have the feminine energy come to life in us as females, it's also coming to life in the male. So I bring the men along, and one of the last ceremonies I had, we honored the men. We got all the men to stand in the middle of the circle. And I was channeling. I do a lot of channeling to my higher conscience. And when I did the channeling, the voice that I started speaking in a voice that I didn't even recognize, but we were honoring the men. We were saying, we need you. We need you. And the whole lot of us were chanting to the men in the circle, in the center of the circle, we need you. And it was so powerful. The men all started to shake and the women were crying. I had no idea it was going to happen. But in that, the men wrote to me after, they emailed me after, and they said they have never experienced anything like it. And they were saddened by the fact that they felt this overwhelming feeling in them that they hadn't been needed. And when we started chanting, we need you, they realized how much they needed to hear that and how much they desired to hear that. So the male energy is also, the feminine is also rising in the men. The feminine is rising in all of us. And the feminine is the earth. The feminine is the dark, deep, sultry energy that's rising in all of us. It's the slow movement. And the masculine energy is the fire, the movement, the speed, the thrust, the penetration. So what's happening is on the earth, as we're now going through this pandemic at the moment, the fire is becoming stronger. We're moving into a new dimension. We're moving into a new vibration. The fire is becoming stronger. So we need to increase, the fire being the male, we need to increase our feminine being the female, the feminine energy. We need to increase the feminine cool, dark, deep, sultry, feminine energy in all of us so we can actually hold the new light that's available to us, the new fire that's available to us. So we need to rebirth and rebirth the earth, which is happening at the moment, and rebirth ourselves to be able to hold this new energy. So the men are needed also to rebirth their feminine so they can hold the new masculine energy that's coming in. So in a man and a woman, relationship-wise or any-wise, the man and the woman now have the opportunity for both of them to increase their female or their feminine energy so that they can come together with a much stronger, much deeper, much more sultry, sexy, whatever word you want to use, relationship. I mean, we're on the cusp of fireworks in relationships if we can really open to it. We need to stay grounded and let that feminine energy come up through us.
Yes, we do. It's just like the precipice of a whole new way of relating and being and communing. And I imagine some people might be listening to this and going, wait, feminine energy in men? And yeah, it's true that we all have masculine and feminine energies in us. So regardless of our sex, men or gender, men or women, we all have it. Our masculine energy, as you were describing, and our feminine energy. And I'm really hearing this recalibration that's happening, and that there's an invitation to birth this new kind of identity of the feminine within us as the planet is going through this major shift and paradigm change. I'm curious for you, for the women that are listening, going, great, I want to do this work. I want to be a part of this shift. What's kind of one thing that you would say to them about what to focus on next, or one thing that they can do to really rise up and meet the occasion of this rebirthing of the feminine?
Do the work. I would say do the work. There is no easy way out of this. Somebody emailed me last week. I'm doing everything online now because nobody can leave their houses. So they said they really wanted to do the work, but they weren't very techy. And I get that. I really get that. I'm not very techie either. But you have to want something before you do it. You can't, it just doesn't happen. So you have to want, and you have to want to be able to grow and to evolve. Then it will happen. But you need that desire. And it's there for us. It's available for us. We're going through one of the most beautiful times I can, well, in my lifetime anyway. And as I look back through history, I don't think they have gone through such a beautiful time. We're going through this age of Aquarius, heightened vibration, the reawakening of the feminine energy. We're privileged. And the men, you were talking earlier about yes, there is a feminine and masculine in both of us. When we come together, a man and a woman, and even making love, you have to have both. It's like the yin and yang sign. You have to have both for the fireworks to happen. You have to have the woman in her, like the whole act is an act of coming together of the elements. The earth element is our bodies. It's our physicality. It's our bodies. And the earth, that's the earth element. It is feminine. The water element is feminine. That's the flow, the movement, blood flowing around, lymph flowing around your body, all of the fluids in your body. The men have the same. They have fluids in their body. They have a physical body. So then the masculine energy is the fire. That's the fire, the passion, the drive, the penetration. And the yang energy, the movement. And the air is the masculine energy, the breath we breathe in. And if you're making love with somebody, if both of you are breathing together and breathing right down into your body and getting that energy to move, you're moving the water energy, you're moving and navigating the fire energy. So what the two of you are doing is tending to the passionate fire that is rising within both of you. So both of you are made of feminine, masculine, and then in the actual act of the sexual penetrative act, you then are forming this new masculine and feminine coming together of the penetration, masculine into the feminine. So we cannot be only one thing. We have to have a mixture of all. Sorry, I had to go back and say that to Kildaire.
We are all of it, absolutely, and that tending to that fire and bringing it all together, and that really that place of wholeness and unity. And I think that's at the end of the day what we're all after, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank
Sure.
you so much for coming on today, Edel. Tell people where they can find you if they they reach out.
Well, you can find me on my email. My name is Edel Swords at gmail.com, and that's EDELSWORDS at gmail.com. That's the best place you can find me, really. You can find me on Instagram as well. I've very few posts up. I'm not very good. I'm like my client. I'm not very techie, but I'm getting there. And so I would love to hear from people. As you know, I could go on and on about this subject at length.
You are such a resource, such a light in the world. You are a living example of doing the work, of bringing everything into harmony, of deep intuition and knowing and seeing and commitment and love and so many things. So thank you for coming on and sharing all of that with us. And I'm just so delighted to know you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Okay, bye for now.